How do you do that voodoo that you do so well?
I try hard.
Lots of pins.
Lots of pins. Yeah, there we go.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today, guys. We're going to be talking about voodoo in Haiti and in New Orleans. And we're going to be talking about a little bit about the history of it and dispelling a lot of rumors about it. So coming up on Black Lotus. Conspiracy theories, the paranormal, UFOs, aliens, and all things strange and unusual. This is Black Lotus. So yeah, I think where we need to begin with this is about where voodoo came from originally. Voodoo wasn't the original religion. You know, it was actually an African religion.
Right.
But see, when Christopher Columbus discovered Haiti, the New World, and you know, a lot of people think that he discovered America. He didn't really discover America. He discovered the West Indies, pretty much. He discovered Haiti, which was then called, and it was then taken over by the Spanish and renamed Saint Domingue.
Yes.
And but anyway, when his troops landed there, they pretty much decimated the native population there by slavery, and it was awful. It was awful. I mean, they would have like beheadings contests and things like that. They did beheadings for sport. They would be walking along, and if a slave looked at them, you know, because the slaves always had to be looking down on the ground.
Right.
If a slave looked at them, they had every right to just take a sword and decapitate him right there and then.
Isn't that crazy?
It was awful. It was
crazy.
Some of the most brutal slavery conditions ever in history. It was absolutely horrible. So once the native population were all dying out, you know, because they were killing them all, then they started bringing over African slaves to do their work, and this was done with the blessing of the Catholic Church. Yeah, I mean, it was something else. But then during the French occupation that began in like 1625. The entire economy was based on slavery.
Right.
And here's the thing. Voodoo was kind of a result of this slavery. And the reason being is because the slavers didn't allow the Africans to practice their religion, you know, because they thought of them as savages. And so they imposed Catholicism on them. And so they made them acknowledge, you know, Jehovah, Jesus, Mary, and all their plethora of saints. And so, you know, obviously you're not going to give up your religion that easy,
right.
You know? And so what they did is they took their gods and attributed them to Catholic saints. So it looked as though they were worshiping the Christian deities, but they really weren't. But... And then, so there was once the French took over the island, and during their occupation, and this happened in 1625. By then, the entire economy was based on plantation slavery, and the slaves had an uprisal, and it is the only known successful slave rebellion ever in history to this date, you know. And but yeah, the French treated them just as bad as the Spanish did. Right. They were just awful to them. And so then later on in, you know, between 1915 and 1934, the U.S. occupied Haiti, well, part of Haiti.
Right.
But see, by then, because of the slave revolt, a lot of the island had already been taken over by the Haitians. And so even the U.S. Back during 1915, and so and you know, this is after the Civil War, after we declared slavery illegal, we still forced labor upon them, unpaid labor on them, and made them build roads as a defense mechanism against the Haitian resistance. You know, and I've heard that even to this day there's slave labor that goes on.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So how did this result in the voodoo?
Well, as far as slavery, the Haitian slavery coming over here to America, and voodoo beginning in New Orleans, the way that happened is that slavery in America began in 1619. Okay, and most of the slaves were brought over from Africa by Dutch slave traders. But see, they found out that Haitian slaves would fetch a better price because they were already conditioned to the life of a slave. And so there was no, throwing them in chains and training them to what you wanted them to do. They already knew what to do. They were working plantation life down in Haiti. And so they got a bigger price, like upwards. I read upwards to like 3 times the amount of a typical slave. And if you recall, slaves back then were very expensive. You had to be very rich.
Your workforce was slaves back then.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so you spent a lot of money on slaves. And so to get a Haitian slave, a lot of those Haitian slaves actually ended up working in the houses, because they already knew how to be slaves. You didn't have to train them. You didn't have to beat them as much, that kind of thing. And so. And as badly as slaves were treated here in America, the Haitian slaves actually got a reprieve because they knew what to do here. And so they were less likely to run away because, again, they were conditioned to the life of a slave. And so, yeah. But people spent a fortune on them. I once heard that one slave was equal to one modern day automobile, as though, say, $35,000 to $40,000, in today's money, one slave.
Yeah, and they had field works.
Yeah. And
so they used the voodoo to protect themselves then?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, because, if you think about the slave mindset, there's only so much you can do. And so, you want to appeal to the gods to either help you cope with what you're going through or to help you maybe get a little vengeance, because you certainly couldn't get physical vengeance on the slave owners or so they would make these little dolls and what have you, or little gree bags, conduct rituals and that kind of thing. And that's another thing too, is that in Haiti, the slave owners did not allow the slaves to practice rituals. They were allowed to practice religion, and they did under the guise of Catholicism, but there were no rituals allowed. In America, evidently, not all of them, but many slave owners allowed it to go on, allowed the rituals to happen. It was basically to appease them, to prevent another uprisal, because they saw what had happened in Haiti, So, yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the history behind all of that. But you have done some study into the difference between Haitian voodoo and New Orleans voodoo.
Right, it's a little bit of a difference, and mostly because, like you were talking about, was charms. Voodooism in Haiti and stuff was more of the rituals, not about the charms and the dolls and the protection. Mm-hmm. That all started here because of what you're talking about. They weren't allowed to do their rituals.
Oh, they were here in America. Oh, they were allowed.
No, as the slaves, they weren't allowed to do the rituals. So that's why they made the dolls.
Okay, I gotcha.
Okay, so and basically what voodoo means is what voodooist is servants of the spirits. Mm-hmm. So they believe there's a spirit in all things. Mm-hmm. It's not just in humans and animals, but everything has a spirit. So sure. That kind of fits in with other religions also.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So talk to me about the different famous voodooists out there, like voodooists out there, like Marie Laveau.
Okay. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about on the voodoo dolls too is that was Americanized more than
okay.
That was very, very much. Now you can go there. There's a tourism, and you can go buy a voodoo doll. And we were talking before about the voodoo dolls and how you had to put your spirit and love into them. Mm-hmm. And now it's become basically a token.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
So it's kind of sad actually, because that was a very big part of their religion, or still is, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, it still is, I think. You know, I mean,
yeah, she was Mary was a hairdresser actually originally, and people would come and start talking to her and seek counseling from her, and she ended up becoming the queen of New Orleans for voodooism. She would get paid like a lot of money to get amulets or have blessings done to people and that type of thing, and people would always come and seek her advice. But again, she would only do it for the money.
Sure, and
was,
and something worth mentioning here is that it was considered illegal. You know,
definitely.
So any money that was handed to her for these services was not considered a business transaction. It was more of a donation. You know, so.
What other people don't know too about her is she also was a Catholic, and she attended Mass every day.
Yeah, yeah.
She was very devoted. So I find that kind of odd because, you know, people always think voodoo and you automatically think Satan worshiper, automatically think cannibalism, automatically think all these horrible, bad, evil things. But here she was a total Catholic.
All right. I think, personally, you know, after looking into Marie Laveau, I think what she did, the Catholic thing was a ruse, in my opinion. She was a voodooist. She was strictly voodoo. However, she knew where her bread was buttered, you know, and so she hung out among the New Orleans elite. And where are you going to find the New Orleans elite more than at the Catholic Church?
Very true.
You know, I mean, and so that's not to say she wasn't devout to her religion, but she was devout to voodoo, I think, more than she was devout to Catholicism. I think she used Catholicism as a means to an end, you know, but maybe that's just my opinion. I don't know, but it just seems to me that would be the case with her.
Possibly. One of the interesting things I found out about her too was that originally people would get hung, during that time period, and there was 2 people that were victims and about to be ready to be hung, and she went and visited them at jail, and then the day that they were supposed to be hung, a large storm came, and they actually slipped out of their nooses and were saved from being hung. And people say it was because she did it. And after that, there has never been another hanging in that town.
So they slipped out of their nooses. So they didn't hang them afterwards? They just granted them reprieve because of an act of God, maybe?
Law. Yeah, right. There's a law in the books where basically if, they hang you and you don't die, you've paid your debt. They tried.
Really? Yeah. Is that right? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
That law's not in the books anymore with the death penalty, man. I mean, if you don't die with the electric shock at first, try again. You know.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Huh. That's interesting.
So I thought that was interesting. That's how the hanging stopped for a while there.
Yeah.
Because she scared everybody basically.
Yeah.
So another thing that's interesting I found out about her too was that if you go visit her grave, you'll find a lot of X's on the grave, and supposedly if you use a red brick, is what you're supposed to use, and mark an X and knock 3 times, you get blessed. Yeah,
what you do is you take the red brick and you mark an X 3 times, then you knock 3 times, and then ask for your wish. But here's the interesting thing about that. It's believed that that's not where Marie Laveau's body is entombed anymore. It's been moved, and I think it's probably because the city is afraid of more vandalism there.
Grave robbers.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but apparently, I read this somewhere along the way that her body's actually been moved. Yeah.
Well, people still go to do that, and they also leave we talked about this in a previous episode, the monkey and cock.
Yeah,
with the little monkey and cock statue, and they leave it there. And the history of that is, of voodooism, is that basically, if you have this statue, you get granted a wish once every year, and for 3 years. Now, the year starts when you receive it, so that's its first year birthday. So at the end of the 3 years and the 3 wishes, you must pass it on to somebody else or return it to the grave site, or else you lose all your wishes. So I thought that was another interesting thing. It's like there's all these little statues all over.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is that it's kind of like the Wailing Wall in Israel, where the people will roll up little prayers and stick it into the wall. And there's a guy who goes by there every couple of days and has to remove all these things and throw them all away. Well, the same is true for I don't remember which cemetery it is, St. Louis Cemetery number something or other, where her tomb is supposedly at. But there is stuff that gathers, flowers and tokens and all kinds of stuff that gathers around there. And there's a guy who has to go there once a week and clean it all out, because otherwise it would just be overrun with this stuff, you know.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. And a lot of it is done by tourists rather than by like devout voodooists. You know, I mean, and it's just people think, you know, oh, let's go mark up the grave. Let's see what happens, that kind of thing. I mean, they're not really serious about it, you know, and that's kind of sad. You know, you were talking about how voodoo has become what's the word I'm looking for?
Cliche or
no, not cliche, but it's a big tourist trap anymore. I mean, you go on Bourbon Street. There's Marie Laveau's House of Voodoo. There's another one there off of Toulouse, I think, and it's called Dr. John's Spirit Shop or something. But it's all tourist based anymore. I mean, they still have real voodoos that work there. You know, and there are people there that do readings, and there are people there that actually bless stuff. But for the most part, it's just it's run by the local tourist economy. You know, and people don't fear it anymore. You know, I mean, I think they think it's weird, but they don't fear it. I mean, it's kind of like the way people look upon Wicca today, as opposed to the way they looked at traditional witchcraft way back when. They thought it was so evil, and that it, you know, they sacrifice babies to Satan and blah blah blah. Well, that's not what they do, and the majority of people have discovered this. I mean, we've stepped away from the ignorance, and so they no longer fear it anymore. So there's no real mystery anymore. Now people go to shops like Marie Laveau's House of Voodoo and pick up a candle. You know, I mean, and one of those candles, says "shut your mouth." So if somebody's slandering you, you burn this candle. You know, and you put a picture under the candle of the person, and it's supposed to keep them from slandering you. Well, you're bordering on black magic there, because you're twisting somebody else's will. So the people that are at the shops will sell this stuff to you, but behind your back, they're going, idiot, you know. But anyway, sorry to ramble on that. But, you know,
no, you mentioned Dr. John. Mm-hmm. And now Dr. John, for people who don't know, is the one who started the whole zombie.
Yeah. And folks, we're not talking about Dr. John the musician. We're talking about Dr. John. He was also known as Prince John and something else.
Bayou John.
Bayou John. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, he had several different names. He was in the 1800s.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And he was basically what he did is he poisoned people to the verge of death, and then they became zombies. They had what's the name of it? I can't even think of the name. Narcissus.
No, not Narcissus. That can't be right.
I can't think of the name of it. Anyhow,
Narcissus? Maybe Narcissus.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyhow, basically, it's the toxins from a pufferfish.
Right.
And when you give it to somebody, they basically look and act like they're dead.
Yeah.
And they basically have no control over their bodies or their minds.
But then again, you know, you're saying that Prince John started this, but this is actually an old practice back in Haiti. You know, I mean, I don't know if you ever read The Serpent and the Rainbow, but it's about that. It's about how a pharmaceutical company went down there to find out how they did this. Because, folks, we're not talking about like George Romero zombies. We're not talking about the dead coming back to life. We're talking about people who have been convinced that they're dead, and they have to now serve a master.
Right.
Yeah. So
he would kidnap them and make them serve a couple of years to repay them for bringing them back to life. I saw a documentary on that too. So I was going to bring up. Basically, he started the myth of zombies. They're saying is because what he did is he would poison these people, and then go after they were buried. He'd go dig them back up. And make them come work for them for a couple of years, and then he'd stop giving them the poison, and they'd be released.
Unreal, man. Yeah,
amazing.
And this powder, they would blow it into your face, and it would give, for all intents and purposes, you are dead. You know, because even medical professionals say that they can't detect a pulse or any kind of breath, but you are there, but just barely. Right. And so people are. You know, they get thrown into the ground and they dig themselves out and go, oh my God, I'm a
Again,
zombie.
look at the times. It was the 1800s. They didn't have the medical stuff we have.
Right.
Nowadays, they would probably go, yeah, right, you're dead. Put him in the hospital.
Yeah.
But back then, they didn't have the equipment we have nowadays.
Yeah.
It was all being invented at that time.
Yeah. Let's get back to the fact that they would attribute their gods to the saints. Just for a moment. One of the things, one of the reasons I want to bring this up is because Christians are often very offended that they use crosses in their rituals, or they have crosses on their altars. But what you need to understand is that they don't look upon the cross as the crucifixion of Christ or a representative of Christ. They look upon it as a representative of their main spirit, their main god, if you will, whose name is Papa Legba. And he is kind of like Hecate in witchcraft. She was a goddess of the crossroads, and so is he. And so, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up really quick because that's one of the misconceptions that I think a lot of Christians have about voodoo is that, how dare you use one of our symbols?
Right.
Well, the fact is, it may be one of your symbols, but it means something completely different to them. So.
There's a lot of gods that are very similar, and they also compare him to Saint Peter because they both had the keys. Papa Legba had the keys to the gates to hell. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and he's also the main spirit that is kind of the intermediary, sorry, between the metaphysical world and the physical world. So he's kind of a big guy. And we could actually go on and on and on about Papa Legba because there's a lot of stories about him. And yeah, but anyway, let's talk about spell work.
Well, wait. There's one other thing I want to talk about while we're talking about people of Louisiana who we have to mention. And you actually have met this person, is Chicken Man.
Yeah, I'll get into a story about him in a minute, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to skip over Chicken Man because I actually thought he was a very interesting character after seeing him.
Yeah. He is a really good guy, actually. I liked him a lot. But this brings us to the point of our show today. Is voodoo evil? That's relative, I think. What's evil? The drug dealer down the street, is he evil? He's just trying to feed his family. The guy who murders some guy in revenge, is he evil? I think it's relative. It's completely relative. So I think that's the way voodoo looks upon dark magic. Most voodooists out there don't practice dark magic, and you can't get them to do it, no matter how much you pay them. Some do, though, because they think sometimes it's justified. And so with that in mind, I also want to mention this. Spell work is not particular to voodoo or to witchcraft or any other one that is well known for spell work. Every religion practices spell work.
They worship something or do something in one way.
They worship something. Well, I'm talking about spell work in and of itself. Prayer. All spell work is prayer. I always like to say that magic spells are prayers with props. But you look at the Catholic religion. You were brought up Catholic, weren't you? Okay, so you remember having to go into church and you would light a candle in front of a saint and say a prayer for somebody who's passed on.
Right.
You remember doing that?
Oh, yeah.
And then you drop your little quarter in the bucket. That's a spell. That's a spell. There's absolutely no difference. Or even if somebody's alive, if somebody, say, has cancer and you're concerned about them, right, you light a candle in front of that saint and drop your quarter. And there is absolutely no difference between that and spell work that any witch or voodooist does. There's simply no difference. But anyway.
One of the things you said, too, was about the bad and the evil and stuff. When I was researching this, I came upon this quote from voodooism, and I really liked it. And it was basically, nothing is poison, everything is poison.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely.
And I love that saying, because basically what it's saying is that no matter what it is, it could be used for good or it could be used for bad.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's the way I look upon magic in and of itself. It exists, whether you think of it as bad or good. It exists. It's up to you to mold it. It's a piece of clay. You can mold it into a bowl so you can feed yourself, or you can mold it into a club to hit somebody over the head. That's basically what it comes down to. Anyway, let's take a look at this clip really quick, and it'll kind of further explain this, and we'll be right back.
This doll here is made, I put on my altar and I put a spirit in this doll, a real live spirit into this doll. This doll can be for anyone, but before I give it to them, I hold their hand and I say a prayer. And that way, the doll is for that person only. When I was born, God gave me a gift to heal and to help people, and said if I misuse it, use it for bad things, I lose it. God will take it away from me.
There are people who call me all the time because they want negative things done. And I tell them under no circumstances for any amount of money will I do anything negative, because you do reap what you sow. You cannot do an evil work or invoke an evil spirit to hurt someone and attempt to build a circle of protection around yourself.
So I think that pretty much sums it up with what Chicken Man was saying.
Yeah.
I think that is exactly right. And one of the reasons it's right is because voodooists, like people in witchcraft, believe in karma. So take a look at this real quick. We'll be right back, just a few seconds.
The importance, again, of karma, that what you do, is going to come back to you. Things that you wouldn't want to be done on to you, then don't do it to others. What they said. When you point one finger at at a person, remember, look at how many coming back to you. 4. Okay? So when you sit there and wish this person bad, remember, it's going to come back to you 4 times. So be careful.
So what she was saying was that, for everything that you put out, it comes back to you fourfold. Now, like in Wicca, they have a saying, or that they live by a creed, in that it shall harm none, love and do what thou wilt, and they believe in the threefold law. Voodooists believe in the fourfold law kind of thing. They believe in the threefold law. Whatever you put out comes back to you threefold. But they certainly believe in karma. So as I said before, it's like playing hell trying to get them to do anything bad for you, because they believe that it's going to come back on them. Now, like I said about the voodoo shops, they'll sell these black magic.
Well, they're not doing it.
Exactly. They'll sell it to you. Their hands are clean, but they're not usually willing to do something like that for you, But we were talking about there are certain spell work that is bordering on black magic.
Right.
And we talk. You're talking about things like it's not so much like attracting love or attracting money. So let's take, for example, like a love spell. It's one thing to attract love into your life. That's perfectly fine. Where it borders on black magic is when you single out a certain person. Because
try to make them love you.
Yep, and that is definitely twisting the will of another. So take a look at this. This is something that Chicken Man said that I thought was interesting about that, because I think a lot of people don't understand the repercussions.
A lot of guys come in that, man, I see this girl and I'm in love with her and I want her. It's okay. I make them a little potion, a little gravy bag to go in their pocket. I said, but now when you get her, I said, you're on your own. Don't come to me to try to get rid of her, because I can't. Once you got her, you're hooked, and that's it.
So he says, once you get her, she's all yours. Don't come back to me whining about it. So you better make sure that that's what you want. So they don't. Generally speaking, they don't practice black magic. But anyway, the story about the Chicken Man. I didn't know the guy on a personal basis, but I did get to talk to him a few times when the last time I was living there. And he was a great guy. I heard that he died.
He died in 1998.
Oh, was that long ago?
They don't know how he. this is very interesting because he said that he died of mysterious causes, but I couldn't find anything about him dying on the internet.
Really?
I looked it up and I could not find anything.
Yeah.
So who knows how he died?
Yeah.
I thought he was an interesting character. He moved there. They also called him Papa Midnight, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. And I guess he moved there in the 70s. And you had told me he totally looks the part.
Oh man!
And as you guys saw, he does.
Yeah.
You know.
But I mean, really nicest guy in the world. I mean, again, it's about dispelling ignorance, and you dispel your ignorance and you dispel your fear. And when I first saw this guy, even though I had been involved with witchcraft, I didn't know a lot about voodoo, and I was kind of standoffish. And I was walking by him. I was by the St. Louis Cathedral. And I was walking by him and I was kind of like looking at him, and he walks up to me and goes, "Hi." And he just strikes up this conversation with me. And I'm like, and we sat down in Jackson Square there and had a little chat.
Interesting.
Just the nicest guy in the world. And here's something interesting. People like to deny that magic is real. So here's a story for you. I had a friend of mine who owned a deli in the French Quarter. And now I didn't know him back when he first opened the deli, but evidently for the first year he was floundering. He and his wife were they were ready to give up the ghost. So apparently, in a last ditch effort to save the business, he hired Chicken Man to come in and bless the shop. And he told me that within 2 weeks, suddenly out of the blue, he's getting business hand over foot. He said he had more business than he could handle.
Wow.
And what Papa Midnight did is he came in and he brought in a suitcase. And he wouldn't show him what was in the suitcase, but apparently it was filled with like gree-gree and that kind of stuff. And the reason I found all this out is because I was in the deli one day and I said, "Hey, Steve," I said, "why do you have a suitcase up on that shelf up there?" He goes, "Oh, let me tell you." So he sits down with me and he's telling me about all of this. And the suitcase had like a little voodoo doll kind of attached to the handle of the suitcase. And it was an old beat up suitcase too. It was kind of weird. But yeah, apparently
Did he
it
ever
worked.
open it? He never opened it.
He never opened it. He was under strict instructions never to open it.
That's crazy.
So kind of like a boot box.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, a gree-gree is basically a talismans, good luck talismans and stuff like that. I had never heard that term before. And so I was like, when you said it, I was like, hey, at least I knew what you're talking about now. It's interesting the stuff you learn when you're researching this stuff that you didn't know.
Yeah.
One of the things I didn't know about him that I found out too was originally he was more like a stage person, and he would go up and do shows, and he would do dancing and do magic, and he'd bite the heads off of live chickens and drink their blood.
Hence the whole Chicken Man thing. Yeah.
It's like, I didn't know that's why they called him Chicken Man.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I don't know how that would make him. You say he's such a nice guy, and I hear about that, and it's like,
yeah.
Weird.
But he really was, But he started off as a showman. So and what do they call those people that bit heads off chicken? Geeks? Isn't that where the word geek came from?
I'm not sure, but that sounds about right.
I think that's what I heard. Yeah. But anyway, what else you got on this?
Well, really, the only thing I want to bring up is the misconceptions, like the cannibalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, you told me the story about something that happened back in the 1800s.
Right. 1840 or 1864. People think voodoo and think rituals where you're sacrificing human sacrifices and cannibalism and stuff like that. That's not part of voodooism, really.
Yeah.
What happened was there was a case back in 1864 where this 8 people kidnapped a 12-year-old girl, and they sacrificed her and ate her in the name of voodooism. But they weren't voodoo. They weren't really voodooists. They were just, strange, crazy lunatics.
Wow.
And this case got popularized, and like anything else, you guys have all been on Facebook. Once it starts spreading, boom. And that's how some of the darkness of voodooism became so bad. It was because of cases that didn't even really have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And I found that really, really interesting. So that's a big misconception. The other misconceptions are that they're satanic.
Yeah.
But like we mentioned, they go more off off of Catholic Buddhism and
And that's-
Hinduism, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
they don't really even believe in Satan. I mean, they do believe in evil spirits, but they don't necessarily believe in Satan themselves. But
Yeah, I mean, it's all myth, and everything else. If it's something you're afraid of, research it a little bit. Maybe you'll find out it's not really what you thought it was. Yeah. It's definitely not what I thought it was in the like you see in the movies.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, ignorance breeds darkness, and there's a reason that it's called enlightenment,
So is voodoo evil?
No.
Only if you use it as evil.
No, I don't think, and I kind of agree with some of these people that were saying that sometimes it's justified. Sometimes certain things are justified. If somebody slaps you in the face, you're not going to offer them a bouquet of roses. I mean,
but you can turn the other cheek.
See, that's one of the things that bugs me about mainstream religion is that they preach that turn the other cheek. I'm of the opinion that, that's one of the reasons that I love Buddhism. I love Buddhism, but I'm not pacifist enough to be a Buddhist, because I believe in that eye for an eye. There's times when dark magic is justified, in my opinion, but that's just me. So anyway, well, let's wrap it up. What do you think? All right. We will be back again on Tuesday, and I can't. I never remember what our schedule's like. But here's something for you. We need feet. We need your feet. You don't need to chop them off and send them to us. What we're looking for is pictures of your bare feet, and specifically of your toes. Now, it could be your right foot, your left foot, or both feet. It doesn't matter. And the reason for this is because we are going to be having a paranormal medium on, Anne-Marie Ballog. And if you've caught our other shows recently, I've been mentioning that she does something that's a little strange. I had never heard of this happening before. But you know how some mediums will read palms, and they're into palmistry. She reads toes, and I had never heard of that before. So what we're going to do, and this is going to take place on September 9th, and it's going to be a live stream feed on YouTube, and she's going to be with us, and we are going to have your pictures of feet up there, and she's going to give live readings. And so, yeah, definitely join us for that and send in your pictures. The way you can do that is you can go to our Facebook page and send us a private message through that. Or you can even post a picture of your foot at Black Lotus Media Productions at Facebook. Or conversely, you can send us an email, and we'll accept that too. Just send it as an attached photo. And the email for that is blacklotuspodcast@gmail.com. So definitely send us your feet. This is going to be a lot of fun. That show is going to be a blast, I think.
I think it'll be very interesting.
We had Anne-Marie on once before, and she was so cool to talk to, so this one will be fun too, I think. But anyway, until next time, what do you say we get out of here?
Until next time.
Keep thinking and question everything. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe and click that little bell so you can get a reminder every time we upload a new episode.